Life's Canvas by Rowena of Bellingen 2454. Narrated by Rowena Robinson. Nina Simone's smooth tones glide from my CD player as I put on my oversized, paint-smeared green shirt and squeeze out a rainbow array of thick oil paints onto my palette. I prepare the canvas with quick, broad brushstrokes and plot the outlines of my painting with white chalk. I have learned, sometimes the hard way, that foresight is better than hindsight and that intention matters. With a mix of sap green, ultramarine blue, and burnt sienna, I feather in 2 deciduous trees, which represent seasons of change, like the oak tree and liquid amber tree we planted as seedlings in the Blue Mountains to mark the birth of our son and then our daughter. Although we try to resist the march of time, the only constant is change. My children are adults now, following their careers and making independent life choices without me, the trees fully grown. My parents have passed, and I move into their position as an elder, with many new wrinkles that signify a life well seasoned. Retired, I no longer have my professional kudos as an educator of 30 years. However, still a mother and partner, one of my new roles revealing a web of wonders is that of a grandmother. Reaching for a small brush, I carefully paint my grandson and me walking through the bush. My corded hands hold his dimpled soft one as he points at the birds in the gum trees, brightly coloured rainbow lorikeets, golden-tipped black cockatoos, and little wrens hopping between the shrubs. I paint these to signify our interdependence, the gifts and joy that emerge out of nurturing friendships and connections to family and community. I paint the tall blue gum that regenerates after fire. I remember seeing the myriad of little green buds that had burst through the blackened trunks of eucalypts after a big fire, and pause to reflect on the adaptive states that can follow after loss. Physical change is inevitable if we are lucky enough to reach, as I now have, the 60 years and 10 mark. My paintbrush rests for a moment. I stretch my fingers and notice how arthritis has turned my fingers to the east and west. Simple chores prove more difficult, and I must place pride aside and occasionally ask for help. My hands can no longer sew, knit, and garden, which I thought would be some of the many things I would do in retirement. However, I rejoice that I can go for nature walks, write stories on my computer, and I am learning to paint with oils. Grateful that I can still hold a paintbrush. Establishing goals, no matter how small or unassuming, has helped me to move forward and to keep creating, rather than stagnate or lament a past that has become unsupportable. I move from the dark and mid-tones, then finally dab in the light tones on the trunk and leaves, bringing the gum tree to life. 2 kookaburras sitting in its branches cause me to reflect on the place of humour. How good to laugh, especially at ourselves. I smile to myself as I remember my friend saying irreverently while we crunched on our sourdough toast, "We sound like horses. Do you think we can keep all our teeth?" Whoops, I notice I've made the beak too big on that kookaburra. What is that old adage John Lennon said? Life is what happens to you while you are busy making other plans. Despite our best intentions, we are definitely not always in control. The need to step back and ask, does it really matter? Is a valuable life lesson. My brush outlines the distant shape of the square-tailed kite circling in the updraft above the Bellingen Valley to signify higher awareness. As I age, I have learnt that life is fragile and not to be taken for granted, and so I paint with a fine brush an orb spider's silken web delicately spanning across some branches. We never know how long we have before the web of our own life is broken. Along with the joys of connection that a close-knit community such as the one I live in provides, the pathos of others' death and suffering is also present. Sketching in a skink lizard in the leafy undergrowth, I reflect with gratitude on the wonderful little moments I have enjoyed, such as a cup of tea on my deck with a good friend, or an early morning walk as the sun cracks over the hills. Making the most of these times and doing what makes your heart sing build precious memories. Next, I outline a sturdy steel railing flanking a winding path that disappears into the distance. I recall my mother who used to say, "Aging is not for the faint-hearted. You need courage to face it." Now I realize the wisdom in my mother's words. Aging entails resilience, a steely grit to face pain or loss head-on, as well as a flexibility to adapt to what comes unexpectedly across our path. Loosening my grip on the paintbrush, I splash a bright orange and fiery red in the foreground, giving the impression of a field of flowers through the light-filled grass. Allowing space for spontaneity and trying something outside my comfort zone brings a surprising freshness to the canvas. Listen to your gut is a valuable motto for life. The times when I haven't are the times I have regretted my choices. The fading light tells me I have whiled away a few delicious hours in one of my favorite pastimes. I'll come back to it tomorrow. Hopefully we can keep learning and building on our life canvases, always creating and cherishing small moments of joy, moving with intentionality, but allowing for spontaneity and the odd misplaced dab of paint. I slip off my painting smock, put my paintbrush down for the day, survey my work with a discerning eye, and nod. Time for that glass of Sauvignon Blanc. The end.